Okay, that's good. Now we just gotta wait for this window. There we go. Of course, there's that going. Okay, I gotta pop out this and do this. I think the majority of our ducks are potentially in a row, which is helpful. Just gotta stretch you down there, and there we go. And oh, high CPU usage detected. You may experience performance issues. Oh, XSplit, you so crazy. All right, how you guys doing? Hope everyone's doing well. Oh my goodness, who we got here? See Sundered Psyche, VJ Morph, John Ashley Smith, Chewed Sock here from Tokyo. Nice. Necronaut Drummer, good morning from the weirdly snow-lacking north of Alberta, Canada. Vampire Count Vargeists on the bench today. Yeah, we're not snow-lacking here. We got a couple inches overnight, which is weird. It's not that weird, I guess. I mean, it's Wisconsin and all, but midweek it's supposed to be in the high 50s Fahrenheit, so this will all disappear, at least one would hope. But anyway, yeah. We kind of knew it was coming, so we sort of, got things in the garage and stuff like that, but it's still, you hate to see it, personally. I don't know. I think it's because I'm getting old. I don't want to see snow anymore, but I don't want to move it away from this house because moving sucks. So there you go. Good afternoon from Germany, painting spaceships from the Eclipse board game for an Advent wreath. Oh, that sounds fun. Nice. Morning from a snowy Winneconne. That's not too far away from where I am. Finally watching a show live since my son's college football season is over. Well, I hope it's because the season's done, not because I hope he didn't get hurt or anything like that, and now it's ended his season, that kind of thing. But either way, welcome. Still trying to finish my War Machine Signar army here in Harlington, Texas. Nice. Morning from Pennsylvania. Let's see here. Waukegan, Gurney area. I was just driving through there last weekend to the Holy Havoc. Good morning from Connecticut. Good morning from Joliet. Mexico. Those are two separate places. Slightly snowy Elkhart. Always fun to watch these live. Well, good to have you. Let me see. Good morning from my tiny apartment in NYC. Nice. Uperland, just got our first dusting of snow. Yeah, this is a little bit more than a dusting, but not terrible. Happy Sunday from Virginia. As we approach winter, keep in mind all of the miniature agnostic games you could be playing, such as Frostgrave. Come join us at the Frostgrave subreddit. Oh, that's fancy. Let's see here. Good morning from Arkansas. Thank you for all you do for the hobby. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming to come and hang out and watch. Jesse Daniel, how you doing? Morning from a wet Milwaukee. No injuries. That's good to hear. Good to hear. Sounds like you need one of those tornadoes like the Wizards of Oz to move your house to Florida. I don't know that I want to go to Florida for a whole bunch of reasons. Number one is it's too hot. But there's other reasons beyond that too. But yeah. I seem to have, for reasons, at least on my screen, I have subtitles turned on. I don't know why that was, but now I've turned them off. They were distracting me. Turns out the secret to making these is just to not get out of bed. Well, see, that's something. That's fine, too. Morning from the Snowy Mitten. How you doing? Morning from Niagara. Christmas lights up yet? We don't really do that here. We just, we've never been a decorating kind of household for that kind of Halloween or, well, every once in a while, I was going to say every once in a while we put up some, Halloween decorations, but we kind of don't. Every once in a while, I'll put a pumpkin in the window, like a plastic one that you plug in. But I generally forget to do so. So, yeah, no. And as far as Christmas tree, we've got 4 cats. That's just asking for trouble. So, yeah, not really into that too much. Unseasonably warm Utah. Well, that's... Good morning from Texas. How about good old Uncle Adam's beard shampoo and balm products? No, that's not a thing I see myself doing, but, I mean, I might partner with somebody, I guess. I don't know. I have no idea. I've actually been reached out to by companies that make beard products, but I haven't found one quite yet that I've been like, well, Sergeant Major, how you doing? Jay from Ottawa checking in. Nice. Hope you're doing well. Good morning from Tampa and sunny Orlando. Come to Maryland, where it's too hot, too cold, and everything in between. Yeah. Monster Apocalypse smashing through stretch goals. So much good stuff coming, but add-ons costing me an arm and a leg. Yeah. That's the way that they work over there at the Kickstarterville. Howdy from rainy Northern Ireland, working on a whole bunch of grots. Nice. I eventually want to do some grots for... I was actually when I was at the store yesterday playing Warcry with Sam, which I'll mention. I was looking at the box of hobgrots that they sell, like separate from the Dominion box, and I was like, And Sam was like, "See that? You could make a army. You could make a Warcry band out of that." And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe. I don't know." Painting some squigs, getting ready to shovel the cold white stuff that's been falling from the sky for the last few days. Yeah. I'm probably gonna quickie shovel before we go to lunch over at the in-laws. I get the Christmas tree and cat issue by having an incredibly fat and lazy cat. Yeah, I mean, we got at least one cat who's pretty lazy, but the other ones, they seem like they would like to climb a Christmas tree, so... I got Slosh last night, a 2K game with my Chaos. Got to adjust my list for a new data slate changes. Yeah, there was a bunch of changes this week in Warhammer 40,000 World that I heard some sounding of horns and some gnashing of teeth, depending on who you talk to. So yeah, I didn't look at it really particularly closely because I kind of don't play 40K these days, but I know that there was a lot of talk. My FLGS got a pile of Battletech stuff the other day after I was nagging them about not having any, and it sold out in 2 hours, and I got skunked. Boo. See, that's... Yeah, I don't understand. I'm so confused. I mean, I guess it's good they got more. That's a step, but the fact that you didn't get any, especially when you were the one that was requesting it. Did they do, like, pre-orders? You should probably... If they do pre-orders in the future, be like, I need this, hold it, order it, and then maybe... Oops, clunked the mic. And then maybe, I don't know. Hard to say. Let's see here. Good afternoon from Dublin, Ireland. Love your videos. I am new to the hobby, about to prime a Chaos Rhino and Orc Gretchen squad. Nice. But welcome, and I'm glad that you like the videos. Rat's Tail says Necron players are very happy right now. I've been hearing that as well, and it seemed like the Necron players were in a bad place from everything that I had read. So yeah, but yeah, we'll see how that goes. Yeah. Historicon this weekend. First con since March 2020. I know in the UK, Salute was, I guess, yesterday. It's just the one day, right? That's in America, that's a thing that doesn't happen too much, a one-day convention. They're generally at least 2 days. It's usually Saturday, Sunday. And I know there are reasons beyond, especially because Salute is very close to London. I know it's very expensive, and I've been told that stuff before. But it is still weird, to me, just because conventions are, like, just about anything's 2 days. Like, even the tournament that I was at last weekend, not playing, but just kind of hanging around and whatnot, which was Holy Havoc in northern Illinois. I was about to say Ireland, but that's not where I was. I was in northern Illinois. Holy Havoc, that was 72 players, because it's a teams tournament, so it's, each table's got 4 people at it, 2 and 2. But yeah, that was like, there was rounds, and it was Age of Sigmar. Round 1, 2, and 3 were on Saturday, and there was a space between 1 and 2 for lunch, and then on Sunday it was rounds 4 and 5, and there was a space in between those 2 for lunch, and then there was awards and raffles and all kinds of stuff like that. Our man Vince Venturella and Tom from Warhammer Weekly, they won Best Overall. They won, it was called the Paragon of Virtue or something award or whatever, so they won Best Overall. They went 5-0, and they also had, like, super amazing paint jobs and the whole deal and everything, so congrats to those folks. But yeah, definitely. Let's see here. But yeah, it was nice to go to a thing, I guess, is partially what I'm saying. And also, I know that, like, it's like I said, Historicon, Salute, things are starting to come back to some degree. I think the Battletech guys in my FLGS gave up. Haven't seen them in a month or so. Mikey says, I went to Salute yesterday. Nice. Salute is one day yesterday. Yep. Vegas here, getting up early for my FLGS kill team and coffee. Oh well, the coffee part. That's a nice. Like, did they provide the coffee? That's kind of nice. Having like like an event with some sort of coffee. I mean, coffee's not crazy expensive. It's a good idea, especially if you're going to do it early in the morning. Were there any unexpected surprises from developing Rain in Hell? I'm making my own skirmish game and would love some guidance. Let's see. Some surprises. We were surprised by how many people were surprised that we didn't make miniatures for it, frankly. Like, I'm a big fan, and I've been talking about this for years now. I'm a big fan of miniature agnostic games, MA games, as you will. And I, but there was a lot of people that were like, well, why didn't you make, miniatures for this game? And I'm like, because it's demons. There's plenty of demons out there you can already just buy right now. And like I said, plenty of other things that can just be demons. Any Dungeons and Dragons monster is a demon if you believe in yourself. It's not hard. So yeah, that was the thing that was kind of surprising, was not pushback, but a lot of people going, why didn't you guys make miniatures? And we're like, because it's really a pain in the butt, as it turns out. Like, it takes a lot longer to go down that road. So the concept of like, use the miniatures that you want, and I'm just going to write the rule set, that's I think, especially if you're indie, that's the way to go. If you have a huge staff of employees and a boatload of money to burn through, then sure, to make a whole miniature line for your game, I guess, if you want, you could do that. But yeah. Let me see here. Hi from West Midlands, UK. Putting last few backpacks and belt pouches on my bolt-action British Airborne Starter Army. Nice. Silver Bayonet video coming soon. I mean, I got a copy of it. I forget where I put it right now. It's in the basement. Yeah, no. I mean, I don't know. I've been looking through it, and it's interesting. The book itself is real gorgeous. Like, it's really nice, like printing, and all the design and everything on it is it looks kind of vintage and old, but not like a vintage old board game or miniature game or whatever. It looks like a vintage old like journal. You know what I mean? So it's got that kind of cool thing to it. The artwork is predominantly all black and white. I kind of wish, frankly, and this is a super tiny nitpick, I wish that the artwork was more kind of pen and ink as opposed to being more almost like watercolory, just because I don't know, it seems like it would have fit better in the journal idea as opposed to trying to do watercolors in a journal, which seems hard. But anyway, yeah. As far as the actual game, like, I've not gotten a chance to play it. I don't particularly, I mean, I can proxy and stuff just to give it a try. It's very in-depth. There's a lot of, I would say, crunch there, and also a ton of lore and fluff and stuff like that. So I do want to give it a go and just at least get the handle of the way that the actual game cycle works. Like how you activate, how you move, how you do things and stuff like that, just to get a better handle. But otherwise, I've only just kind of read through it and kind of looked through it, and then also read through some of the like story, the backstory and stuff like that. So yeah, but that's as far as I've gotten so far. I just got it, well, maybe a couple weeks ago, but like I said, last weekend I was gone and all that kind of stuff. So thanks for the content and opening my eyes to the joys of fezzes. Well, you're welcome there, Coffee and Pistachios. I got to be honest, the fezzes are better in the winter than they are in the summer, which is weird because they come from a place where it's usually generally pretty hot as far as the actual design. I think, at least it seems like it. But yeah, in the summer they're real warm. And in the winter they're nice because they keep your head warm, even though they only just cover the top part. It's weird. Let's see here. Harold and Andrew make it 3 from KC area. I don't think I get that. Almost own my BattleTech House Lances I'm painting. Planning to play Alpha Strike, but just glad to check them off from my list, to be honest. Yeah. The painting was fantastic at Salute. Nice. Vincey V, the T1000 of the gaming scene. It's true. It doesn't sleep, I don't think. Games getting played, it's often the hardest part of the hobby. I mean, and that was a little bit of the point of Friday's video, was about, actually like sitting down and playing and that kind of stuff and everything. I think it was interesting. There were some comments, and I don't know if it, like, all of a sudden someone shared it someplace, because there was a bunch of comments in a row. And by a bunch, I mean, I don't know, 3 or 4 maybe, from people that were like, well, you can play with miniatures that aren't painted. You don't have to wait until they're painted before you can play them. You can play them without painting them. And I was like, No, you can't. I mean, the police will come if you play with unpainted miniatures. Everybody knows that. But yeah. So I don't know what that was about, because it was just like this one block as I was going through all the comments and stuff like that, where people were just like, agreeing or disagreeing or whatever, and then there's just one block of like again 3 or 4 people that kind of in a row just all were like, you can just play with gray plastic, and I'm like, but can you though? Really? I just I don't know. I don't know if you can or not. It's personal preference. You do what you want to do, definitely. Salute doesn't run competition gaming, just traders, demo games, and painting competition. Very good for finding small independents. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's like more of a, I don't want to say a trade show, because a trade show, at least in America, a trade show generally means it's like a business-to-business thing, where business people are talking to business people. Like, Gen Con's dealer hall is not a trade show because people go there to buy stuff. Usually at a trade show, you don't go there to buy things like go, oh, I'm going to buy this and give you money for it and then walk away with it. It's more of like you're making deals and seeing new things and stuff like that. So this is, at least in American terms, I would not call that a trade show. I'd just call it like a dealer hall is generally what they're kind of called around here. Or a vendor hall, that kind of stuff. And those are great, and you're right. It's also a great place to, like, just like the Adepticon, vendor hall is also a great place to find indie, like, miniature stuff, because it's more affordable than, say, like Gen Con's dealer hall. So. Been looking at Star Breach since you mentioned it. Looks like it's really fun rule set. The psychic powers look really exciting. 8-inch push ability would cause some carnage. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, depending on how you're using it, certainly. Ever discuss interest in role-playing games, D&D, etc.? Why not? Which ones? I got into what I'm going to refer to as nerd gaming in the 5th grade with Dungeons and Dragons. And by nerd gaming, I mean not Monopoly, not Sorry, not like board games and stuff like that, but like things that were kind of a little bit weirder, just like basically everything that we do. Your average person, you don't go to Target or Walmart to buy. Well, for the most part, you don't go there to buy War Machine or Warhammer stuff. But to be fair, they have done some stuff through Target a couple years ago. Anyway, my point is that in 5th grade I got into D&D for a while, and then in middle school I got into BattleTech and things like that. But I've never really been a big role player. Did it for a while, but once I got into miniatures, I kind of stuck with that. So I've never been real big into it. Discovered I like bowler hats. It's no fez, but I think it's just as classy. Absolutely. I got a friend named Chris who wears a bowler hat most of the time that I see him. And so there you go. Went to Gen Con this year, first time DMing, so I printed and painted a ton of miniatures. Nice. I have never, well, again, I'm not a big role player like I just mentioned, but also I don't know that I could play a role-playing game with people I don't know at a convention, like that I just met. I just don't know if I've got it in me. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, if I was to sit down, like I have played D&D 5th edition within the last, 3 years or so like that, because for a while at work we were playing it at lunch. But I knew all those people because I've been working with them, you know what I mean? And so we would play at lunch a little bit and it was fine. But like sitting down and just playing a role-playing game with people that I've never met, I just don't. I mean, there's plenty of people that do it, obviously, and they have a great time with it. Adventures League that's kind of the whole point of the D&D Adventurers League. But I just don't think that it would be for me. So, yeah. Nice to see you live from London, working on some Turnip 28 characters. Nice. I know that Cement Saul, if you've been watching Cement Saul, S-A-U-L, cement, like cement on the street. Cement Saul from YouTube has been, and he talked about Rain and Hell, and he's been talking about one-page rules, and he's been making these kind of great videos that I like a lot. He just did one about Turnip 28 recently. So if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about Turnip 28, then you can check that out as well. Let's see here. I've heard Tabletop Minions only likes RPGs where you make silly voices. No, that's not the case, actually. 40k or Star Grunt. Yes, I can play with unpainted minis. Well, I mean, I like a wide-brimmed bush hat, like the Tilly hat. Protects your neck and ears from burning if you spend a lot of times outdoors. I have a Tilly hat, actually, that I mainly use when I mow the lawn. Yeah, but I've had it forever. It's a very good hat. Since I got at least one Blood Bowl team finished, I've almost never played with an unpainted team. If I'm excited to play a new team, it helps motivate me to get them on the pitch. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing, too, is that, again, and here's another reason why I like skirmish games, is it takes a lot less time to get a team on the board when there's 8 of them, let's say, or maybe 10 or less, in comparison to 50 or 100. So, again, same kind of thing. Yesterday, when I was playing with Sam, we were playing Warcry. Obviously, we both had completely painted warbands. I had my Stormcast. This is the first time that I was playing with them in a while. And then he was running Untamed Beasts. But he had to proxy in one, what are those little dogs that look like a bird from the Stormcasts? I forget what they're called exactly. But anyway, he had one of those because he couldn't find the other model or whatever. And so he's just like, I'm going to bring this along. And it was fine. But yeah, we had a good time with that. I never play unpainted, but I do not care if my opponent plays the gray. Well, that's good of you. Just taking the Christmas decorations off the red gobbo. Yeah, I don't have the new one, and I don't see myself getting a new one, but the one from a couple years back when they had the red gobbo, I'm going to definitely take the Christmas stuff off of him and make him red, like he's a kami kind of red gobbo. So that's a play on words is what it is right there. But yeah, and I'm going to. Originally, he was going to be a leader in my one of my kill teams, and so now I don't know what I'm going to do with him. Something else probably. Let's see here. More BattleTech vids, Uncle Adam. I mean, I don't play anymore. Like I said, I haven't played since. Well, I was going to say I haven't played since middle school, but that's not true. I did play in college for a while. I've got some BattleTech miniatures that I bought this year at Gen Con just because I thought I might paint them. So maybe I'll make a painting video about them, but we'll see how it goes. I noticed at Gen Con, the more open or forward role players were the ones that showed up with a group of friends. Yeah, I can understand that. If it's a group of 5 of you that come to a table to play, and you at least know then some people there, then that would be better, I guess. Sure. I mean, at least in my opinion. Ironically, being the DM made it easier for me. Maybe something to be said for role playing from behind the screen. Well, yeah, that's a piece of cardboard. It could help. Shops are still not open for in-store gaming in my area. Any suggestions to meet with players to play 40K or Kill Team? Well, I mean, it's hard. If the local store has a Discord, or if the local store even has a Facebook group or anything like that, which, frankly, any local store should be trying to have some sort of way to be able to connect people together to play, because the more people that play in the local area, the more likely they are to buy stuff so that they can play. So it just makes a lot of sense. My local stores here, they have not a Discord, but they use a lot of Facebook groups and stuff like that. And that's how a lot of times people are like, hey, I'm free on Friday, blah, blah. And then they get together that way. Of course, the fact that Facebook is spiraling into a who knows what's going on with it. That's why we're working on bringing back Game 4. That's also in progress. So I'm looking forward to being able to do that. When we relaunch, we're not going to be launching. We're not going to wait until everything's done and then launch, because that'll take a long, long time. So what we'll be doing is we'll be launching kind of a little bit piecemeal almost. We're redesigning it so that instead of, if you've ever used Game 4 in the past, the app from a couple years ago, which we had to hibernate back in 2020 because of pandemic, when you opened it up, it immediately went to game events in your area. Well, now we're going to have it open up and go to kind of a menu, so that if you're not interested in game events in your area, but you're just trying to look for stores in your area, you don't have to go to the menu to find it, which is over on the side underneath the little hamburger thing and all that stuff. Instead, you'll just be game stores, and then boom, and it'll hit it. So there'll be kind of bigger buttons, and it's going to be a menu situation like that. The upside to that as well is that it allows us to be more modular, so we can launch the app initially with the Game Finder part ready to go, because that's going to be the easiest part to get done, and then we can just keep adding chunks to it as we go. If we have to wait until everything's done before we launch it, it'll be too long. So we're in the process of working on that actually right now. Well, not right now, today's Sunday, but, been working on it at work. So, yeah. Have you ever heard of Monster Apocalypse? Oh, yeah. It's a bit bigger than Skirmish, but smaller than a full war game, and has giant kaiju monster fighting game that might be in your wheelhouse. I tried playing the original Privateer Press version of it back when you used to buy them and they were pre-painted and you didn't know what you were going to get in the package. I didn't buy them. I just waited till they came out on eBay, and then I bought what I wanted. This was sometime after the launch. And it never just, I don't know why, but it just never kind of quite stuck with me. And I know now they're doing it through Mythic, I think is the company that has gotten the license from Privateer Press. And I know that you also paint them now, so they're not, but I have not, I don't know. Like, I like kaiju movies. Like, I'm a big fan of Mothra in general as a kaiju, I guess. I loved all the most recent Kong and all that, Godzilla stuff. But yeah, I've never been super crazy interested in playing games based off of that. And I don't know why. New to the hobby from Chile. Well, we're glad to have you. Welcome to the channel and to the hobby. There you go. Once had to play against an unpainted army that was so missing arms and heads, just torsos and legs. After that, I draw the line having a complete model. Yeah, I have. Way back in the day, I used to see people come to War Machine tournaments and just have, like, the legs and the torso of a warjack on the base, and then they would, like, just lay the arms kind of on the base or, like, near the base so you know which weapons they had, and you're like, all right. I mean, you could have done less, I guess, but let's see here. What else we got? Hey, Adam, good to catch you live. Are you planning to be at Adepticon 2022? I'm planning to head up from the Dallas area. I am, yeah. As long as they still have it, which currently things, fingers crossed, seem to be pretty good. Yeah, my plan is to be at Adepticon 2022. I've got my hotel room secured. The event registration should start probably in December. Usually it's around Thanksgiving in America, which is usually late-ish November. And that's standard, like normal time, but these are not normal times. So from everything I've been seeing, it might be into December before registration starts up. But yeah, that's I'm definitely planning on going for sure. So yeah, it'd be good to see you there. Let's see, where am I? Battletech was the game that got me in the hobby back in the late 80s. When I came back, I went nuts buying mechs. Now I've discovered many other games I like more. Yeah, my main issue with regular Battletech is it's just a lot of bookkeeping. That's personally, like, we were talking a little bit about this yesterday, about the difference between Warcry and Kill Team. It's kind of like when they built Kill Team, they decided to just take Warcry and just add a bunch of stuff to it. And we were just having a lot of fun playing Warcry, and we didn't, you know what I mean? Like, in Warcry, like, all attacks are done in the Warcry style, whether it's a range attack or a melee attack. It's, what's the reach on this weapon or range on this weapon? Because there are some ranged weapons in Warcry. How many dice do I throw? Oh, I can throw 4 dice on this one? Cool. And then my strength is this and your toughness is that, which means I need 4s, and then I throw these dice, and I either do this much damage for a normal hit or this much more damage for a critical. And it's a simple game loop, and then you kind of move and this and that and all that kind of jazz. But they then took that as the basis for Kill Team, and then they changed the way that melee combat works. So they use that for more your range stuff. Plus, there's also saving throws, plus your armor saves and stuff like that. Which there's no armor saves in Warcry. You just take damage and you just have a bunch of points, and it's okay. The more points you have, the more damage you can take. And and then there's the equipment that you can add to the people that are like, for every, it's a part of the equipment list, and there's just all these different things, and there's a lot more tactics cards and all that kind of stuff. And if you like that crunch, that's great. They've done that. But we're looking at the 2 games, and we're kind of like, I just like we played like 2 games in an hour and a half maybe, and then we were yammering on and stuff like that. We weren't just being super crazy serious. We were playing because there were other people watching, so we were kind of even teaching a little bit and stuff like that at the shop. We were playing at the local shop. So yeah, it's just, I've gotten to the point in gaming to some degree where if there's just too much to a miniatures game, I'm just kind of like, nah, that's too much. It depends, but everybody's got their own opinion on like what they like to play, and that's why there's lots of different types of games out there. Are there local 40K Facebook groups? Bolt Action has local and regional groups where they're... I mean, I don't know a ton about that. Like I said, it's more often than not, it's best to start with your local store if you have one and see if they've got any kind of Facebook groups or if they've got a Discord or whatever. If you can actually get to the shop and go in there, then very frequently, at least you can ask a little bit more quickly and just be like, hey, employee, manager, owner, whoever's there, be like, when's the night that people come here and do this? Or do they do it on a Saturday afternoon? Or like, what's kind of going on? And that can kind of help too. Or do you have a sign-up board for people who want to play games? Or do you have a Facebook group or anything along those lines? Let me see here. I almost missed this, only 24 minutes late. Well, we're glad to have you, Animaster. Hope you're doing well. Question, will the new Game 4 have preferences for COVID vaccination status mask wearing? I don't know. It's not a bad idea. I mean, we want to add new stuff to the stores. So the store listing, it used to be you had basically like hours, your phone number, address, blah, 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 hours, website, and a description field that you could put in whatever. You could talk about the things that you sell at the store, like what types of lines you carry. You could talk about all kinds of stuff in that. That would still be not a bad place to put it in there. That being said, we do want to add stuff like curbside pickup, online ordering, like these types of things. The mask and whatever kind of stuff, social distancing stuff. I mean, it might be not a bad idea. The other option would be to just suggest that game stores put that information in the description field so that you can see it there. We went back and forth on curbside pickup, whether that should be an actual field in the database or not, because we're like, well, hopefully, at least in 3 or 4 years, that won't be a thing that's necessary anymore. But it's also a possibility that that type of thing is just going to be more important to people going down the road, even when things are back to AKA normal or whatever. There's a lot of fast food restaurants. I've been reading articles lately about fast food restaurants saying, we don't know if we're going to build seating areas in the new places that we set up. We might just stick with drive-through, which some people are like, yeah, that's cool. And other people are like, oh, that's a bummer. But, they're looking at the numbers. They're businesses, and that's what they do. So it wouldn't be the end of the world if we then needed to, or if it became outdated. I mean, honestly, in a very perfect world, if we put it in there, this is COVID recommendations or COVID protocols for the store, and then eventually it became useless to have it there, I'd be so happy. You know what I mean? If it was no longer an issue, certainly. So yeah, it's not a bad idea though. Absolutely, it's something we've been thinking about. Like I said, we talked back and forth and decided to go with the curbside pickup thing. That's going to be added in there, but the status and mask wearing and stuff like that, at the very least, as a store, I would definitely put it in the description if that's an important thing, because you can easily change the description whenever. But we'll take a look at the concept of actually having it as a separate field. The idea is that, like, if you don't have curbside pickup, then it just won't say, like, in the listing, curbside pickup. No, it'll just be like, oh, we also have curbside pickup. If you say yes, it'll, so that way, if you don't fill out a field, we don't show an empty field in the listing is generally what we want to do. That's just kind of general good design. When considering game rule sets, what's the sweet spot for rules complexity? 7. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I don't. That's like there's not a great way to answer that, I guess. It's kind of a you know it when you see it sort of situation. At least for me, like I play through a game and I'm like, there's too much to this. Or I play through a game and every once in a while you're like, there's not very much to this. It's more often than not that there's too much to this, in my opinion. I think there's too many games out there, frankly, that there's just way too much going on. Like they've made them, like, I really personally think that 9th edition 40K, I think they added too much stuff. I think 8th edition was the sweet spot, frankly. And now there's too much stuff in 9th edition. Now, again, I'm not a competitive player. I'm barely even a 40K player at all anymore these days. But when I went through and read through 9th edition, I was just like, this is, like, 8th edition was pretty sweet. 7th edition was not very good. 6th edition was I liked 5th edition fine when I first started playing. But again, I had nothing to compare much against as far as 40K was concerned. Now that I've gone through, I'm like, I think they had it right more. Obviously, there was things that need to be tweaked with codices and this and that and the other thing, but the overall general rules for 8th I liked. I know there were people that decried the concept of like, well, there's no more armor facings to my vehicles. That's just like added stuff and complexity that sometimes you don't need. And I think a lot of people now, I'm sure there's 50 people here in the audience that are like, nope, I really want armor facings back in 40K. That's what made the game for me. But there's a lot more people that were like, yeah, I didn't need to have another fight about whether I was hitting the front or the side armor, that kind of thing. So I don't know. It's interesting. So I don't have a good answer, I guess, is the answer. It's hard to, say this is the complexity line that we draw in the sand. It's a little bit more amorphous, I guess, like that. I suspect there are some certain games that can be very detailed, but they do it in a way that makes it easier somehow. But generally for me, like if a miniature game has too many stats, like as it is, I mean, Warcry's fine. Like there's not too many stats. It's real on the edge, honestly, because you've got. I mean, there's the issue is that you're separating weapon stats from actual person stats, right? The stats for the person are their movement, their toughness, and their hit points. That's basically it. Now, you decide to give that same person different types of weapons. Well, now you have the weapon stats, which are reach, and then a number of attacks, and then strength, and then damage / crit. So in that situation, when you add all those together, but because they're kind of separate, this is the weapon and this is the person, it's not so bad. But there are plenty of games out there where like, well, the person themselves in this miniature game has got 7 stats or something like that. And you're like, that seems like a lot more stat. I feel like you're trying to go towards towards a role-playing game at that point, and not so much a. But then on the other hand, like sometimes, like we've had some people say that Reign in Hell, you're like, you got 3 stats for your people. That's it. And we're like, well, yeah, that was kind of the point. The game, that situation, the game is a little bit less about crunching stats to be able to build your list perfectly. It's a little bit more about the placement and like the doing the actual objectives, and then also playing over the period of time of making a campaign. That's kind of the deal there too. So yeah. Morning from Bristol, UK. How you doing? New Kill Team Chalnath box. I don't like saying the word Chalnath. I don't know why. It just doesn't seem like a word that Chalnath. Am I pronouncing it right? I hope I am. But I know you spelled it right there. Anyway, hasn't showed up in GW stores for Japan region yet. Strange considering Octarius launched same day when it launched. Maybe something to do with pandemic. Yeah. For the next several years, everything's going to be screwed up. We all just have to take that into consideration. Global supply issues are just messing everything up. There is, I forget exactly which Black Templar thing it is, because the GW has dumped a bunch of Black Templar stuff out recently, but I've gotten emails. Was it Gromaldus? I don't know, it was something. And they were going to send me a copy, which I still haven't found yet. They haven't sent it yet, or I haven't gotten it yet. But they have, when Games Workshop sends, for lack of a better term, an influencer or whatever, a YouTuber, a podcaster or whatever, they send out a review copy to somebody. They send it out with an email saying, you can't talk about it until this date. And that is what's known as a news embargo. And the reason for that is predominantly so that, like, if somebody gets it in the UK on Monday and makes a video about it on Tuesday, it's not fair for the people who, let's say, maybe live in Canada or Australia who don't get it for another week. So they generally try to figure out when's it going to land in all the places we've sent it to, and then here's the date. And generally, the date is also the date that it goes up on pre-order. So they are pretty much almost always like, you have to wait till the day of pre-order. They give you a date and a time, all that kind of stuff. This is when your videos, your podcasts, whatever, your Instagram stories can go live. This is not nefarious. Every company out there in the world does this with review copies of video games or this or that, or there's generally always like a, hey, this is your embargo date. The embargo date on Gromaldus, or which I forget exactly which Black Templar guy, has changed 3 times. It originally was like this, and then they were like, oh god, no, it's got to go a couple weeks ahead, and then all of a sudden they were like, oh wait, no, we can do it. And so it's moving around, and it's because they're having a hard time, just like most everybody else in the industry and the world is having a hard time figuring out how we're getting things from point A to point B, and very frequently point A is over in China. The models, for the most part, for Games Workshop are generally all made actually in Nottingham, but I think still to this day, much of the cardboard boxes that wrap around those models are getting produced over in China, and so it's difficult. I got a friend who works in a company where they source stuff and they make products that people buy out of catalogs and things like that, and she was telling me Friday night, she's like, there are times we'll order something and we're like, we don't see it for 3 months. She's like, there's a package that we're waiting for, like a big group of things that they ordered that are sitting in... Where are they sitting? I think it's Port of LA. And have been sitting on the dock. They've gotten actually off the boat, but they've been sitting there for 3 months, and they haven't gotten unpacked yet because it's, everything's behind. But then they'll order something else from China, and it will show up in less than 30 days. And they're like, how did this even get here on time? Like, how did you... Like, it's all over the board. So, anyway... I'm going to try to stop talking about global shipping because it's not necessarily super interesting to everybody, but it is something that we all have to understand, especially in tabletop gaming, especially how board gaming and all that kind of stuff. A lot of that stuff comes from overseas, and it's going to take a while. How is there one dislike only less than half an hour into this? Must be from someone who hasn't updated to the latest YouTube app, which with dislikes disabled. Well, actually, there was a dislike before I started. I noticed that, so and these things happen. Speaking of getting games played, Warhammer stores here in North Florida have gone completely maskless. Woo, cross your fingers and come over for a game. I don't know if I want to go to Florida for a game right now, but in general, I mean, that's, Are you aware or can recommend any good skirmish content for Star Wars Legion? I want to start collecting, but I don't want to buy 2 starter sets just to begin building an army. Any good skirmish content? I know that Star Wars Legion added another playstyle a couple years ago, which they referred to as Skirmish. It's not Skirmish, in my opinion. Like, when they were like, hey, we're making Star Wars Legion Skirmish rules, you can just download them for free, I was like, awesome. Because at the time, I'm like, what this means is Kill Team, but with Star Wars. Meaning, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to have 6 or 7 stormtroopers and maybe like a leader, and that's it. And then they'll all get to move separately and move around and do stuff, and that's not the case at all. Skirmish for Star Wars Legion, instead of an 800-point game, it's a 500-point game. And there's like a couple of little things here and there, but you're still moving people in squads, to me, it did not seem like Skirmish. I want them to make a game where I play with 6 models or 10 models, maybe max, and they don't have to stay near each other. They can move out and be independent and stuff like that. In my mind, that's a Skirmish game. What they did for Skirmish, it doesn't feel skirmishy to me. It just feels like a smaller version of the main game. And so, I mean, there's nothing wrong, I guess. That's fine, but I'll just play the main game. It's not that big. That's the upside to Star Wars Legion, is even at 800 points, I think I painted 27 models for my 800-point, maybe not even that many. I got Veers, I got Krennic, I got like 4 squads of stormtroopers, but I only have, I think, 4 or 5 in each squad. I think it's maybe 5. Yeah, I guess it was probably close to about 27-ish or so. Yeah, about there. So, it's not the end of the world, but it's also not a skirmish game. And even the skirmish version of it, it's still not a skirmish game, at least in my opinion. So, there's no, FDA approved what is a skirmish game, what is not. So, at least not yet. Let's see. Might as well play with cardboard counters or scraps of paper at that stage. Oh my goodness. Port of LA is a container ship parking lot. Yeah. That is true. Hey, 52 Miniatures, how you doing? Let's see here. Duluth got a fair amount of snow. It's beautiful. I mean, it's pretty now, but anyway. Let's see. If you have to roll for weapon jams and ammo rolls, yeah, that's a step too far in rules complexity for me. I like the concept if it's... Here's the deal. If it's the opposite of a crit, like if I have to roll a d6, let's say, to see if I hit or not, and I do a crit on 6s, but on a 1, I have to then maybe roll that 1 again, and if I roll another 1, then I jam my weapon. In my mind, that's not too much. I think that makes the... But if you have to, like, I'm going to roll to shoot, but I have to roll a different die to see whether it jams, like, every single time, yeah, that would be way too much. But if it's a situation where it's basically the opposite end of the spectrum of the crit, and you roll a 1 and then go, ooh, maybe, and then you roll... Kind of like like the plasma gun rule used to be, where basically if you rolled a 1, you blew up, but you could sometimes get it to re-roll, depending on what was going on. Yeah, so I could see a mechanic that would work like that, but it would also depend on the weapon too. I mean, you could just say any weapon can jam, any range weapon, even though it doesn't have like cartridges that you put in to shoot because it's a laser gun. Well, maybe it just, I don't know, the battery falls out, or who knows, whatever. There's all kinds of things that could happen there, but yeah. If you have to constantly, every time you shoot, also roll another roll to see in this, and then that's more than I want to go with. But for failures, do I do another quick roll to see whether or not my gun jams? That I could see that. That makes sense. As a simple person, I usually like my miniatures games simple as well. When it comes to historical game, I tend to like a lot more complex stuff than in my fantasy and sci-fi. No idea why that is. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that you definitely can have different interests in different flavors of games. There's times when you want like a real crunchy game, and times when you want a game that's a little bit more speedy, I guess, let's say, instead of simplistic. I think simplistic sounds bad, but speedy, that makes sense. Embargo, I like that word. I mean, it's no moist, but it's almost as good. Yeah, that's true, yeah. Current logistics is a nightmare. It's frustrating, but I try to remember it is a game and not worth getting too worked up about. That's more... We should put that on a t-shirt, frankly. Yeah, that's a thing that I think more people should understand. Yeah, definitely. And that's... Like, I know a woman who works for a board game company that's in the midst of a Kickstarter right now, or has launched a Kickstarter. It's something to do Kickstarter related, and they did not plan, obviously, for the global pandemic and the shipping disasters and all the issues and all that kind of stuff. But all the people who are commenting in their Kickstarter are just personally attacking them as if this is all their fault. And so every day she wakes up as a communications manager or whatever and has to answer all these nasty comments and stuff like that, like about her specifically. And she's like, I literally have nothing to do with this. My job is to talk to you folks. And I feel bad for that kind of her having to deal with that kind of entitlement constantly. And again, we're talking about a game where maybe, I don't know, a happy panda punches a monkey in the face, or I don't even know like what board games do these days. That sounds like most board games. I don't know. Yeah, so if people could just dial it back a bit in some situations, as far as that's concerned, that would be great. Let's see here. I live in LA, and it's definitely a cargo ship parking lot there. Yeah. But a month ago, Major Spoilers Podcast had a procurer, I think I'm saying that right, on to talk about shipping issues, especially in regards to printing, but other things. And it was very enlightening. Yeah. No, it's really interesting to see like that kind of stuff and to kind of learn about what goes on to get you the little tiny plastic dudes that you may like sit down and paint and play. PDF rules and 3D printed minis way around global shipping crisis. To some degree, yes. Definitely the printing or the PDF stuff, for sure. 3D printing, yes, except that eventually you may run out of resin or FDM filament. And then, so there's that too. But yeah, in general, it is real nice to be able to just be like, hey, like especially if it's a game where you get to play with models that you might already have, or you can get at your local shop that you don't have to like order from someplace and all that kind of stuff. Being able to get the rules on your iPad or on your laptop or whatever and just start going through them. Maybe you're going to order the book, but you at least have these rules now. Like that's why we did what we did with Rain and Hell. We wanted it to be like, if you buy the printed book, we're still going to ship it to you. Well, we're not going to, but the company that we're working with on that, One Bookshelf, they'll print it and ship it to you. But you'll also get the PDF, so you can at least start reading it now. And it's not like, oh, I ordered this and then waited. Because, again, even with print on demand and all that kind of stuff, things are slowed down. Like they sent us a message, not just us, but all the publishers, a couple weeks ago, basically saying, hey, you should probably tell your United States folks if they want to get an order from us before Christmas, they should order it by like the 7th or something like that of November, because we're, there's just, the other thing that's interesting too is it's not just, the shipping is really terrible right now. It's also, there was this huge surge in people ordering stuff after like 2020, like early part of 2021, all of a sudden consumer spending went through the roof. You could talk to probably most of your local game stores and they'd be like, yeah, we had some really, really good months this early part of the year. And when more and more people want more stuff, they got to ship more stuff, but they're having problems with shipping and getting containers and all this kind of stuff. And so it's all what you would call a perfect storm, but it's far from perfect. It's not great. Use one-page rules with Star Wars. It works great. Yeah, I could see that. What scale of the Star Wars Legion models? I've been running Edge of the Empire during the pandemic, and having models would be cool once the game gets close to the Clone Wars. They are a little bit... They might be close to... I don't know. Like, they're a little bit taller maybe than 40k guys. Like, the Stormtroopers, I think, seem to be a little taller than Guard. But I could be wrong. I think that they're definitely bigger than... There were models that came in Imperial Assault that Fantasy Flight launched first, which was an actual skirmish game, kind of. It was more of a board gamey sort of gateway game, frankly. But it was... For sure, they were those stormtroopers next to the Legion stormtroopers were a good deal shorter. It seemed a little short for a stormtrooper kind of situation right there. So these guys are a bit taller, but they're not huge. So you could probably I don't know. You could probably put them in with something like Edge of the Empire. I could see that. Legion needs a real skirmish mode, but I think it's called Imperial Assault. Shame that game ended, though. They've broken skirmish mode. And again, like I said, I felt like that game was more of a... Because you were playing like on a grid, kind of, to some degree, and all that kind of stuff. Even though it was like cardboard, like hallways and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I would like to see like a real skirmish-style game for that. But you're right. People in here are saying you could probably take one-page rules. Grimdark... Firefight is their kind of kill team version. You could put that in there and probably play with those models, and it would be fine. Dislike before I started. Story of my life. Oh, that's a bummer. Speaking of This Is the Way, Book of Boba Fett looks awesome. So keen. Yeah, I'm looking very much forward to Book of Boba Fett. That's coming out just a little bit after Christmas, I think. At least here. I don't know about overall, but it's online, so it probably is the same everywhere. Been a fan for a long time. Glad to finally catch a stream. Curious, do your opinion on Middle-earth strategy battle game? Do you consider it more of a skirmish game or army battle game? It rides the line in between, because it's not, Age of Sigmar or 40k. Like, really, honestly, and obviously, depending on the army you pick... Sure, you could play Custodes in 40k and be like, I have a 2,000-point army and it's only 15 models. Well, sure. But for the most part, you're looking at least 40, 50, 60 models in a 2,000-point game of 40k. And, of course, you could also play Combat Patrol in 40k and then probably only push around maybe as few as 13, 14, 15, depending if you go with, like, say, Primaris or something like that. So you could do that. But for the most part, I would say 40k is the bigger army game. Age of Sigmar is slightly smaller to some degree when you play it like at 2,000 points. Again, there are armies that will skew, if you go Skaven, you're going to be, you got a lot of rats. And if you go, Stormcast, you've got fewer models. And then when you get into like games like Middle-earth, Strategy Battle... And I've not played... I've read through the original version, the original Lord of the Rings Strategy Battle. I read through it and I was like, this is interesting, but then I didn't know anybody who played, and then I didn't really buy any models, and I just had the book, and it was cool. And then they went into the Hobbit version, and now there's the Middle-earth version. I own the Middle-earth version book as well, and I've read through it a little tiny bit, not as much as I would have liked. But again, I don't know anybody in the region who plays that game here. But I have watched it played at a tournament at the Nova Open, which is in Northern Virginia, a.k.a. basically D.C. And when I'm seeing those are usually 30-ish models per side, it seems. And again, there's fluctuation. That's still, in my mind, a bit of an army game, but it's a small army game, I guess you could say. So, for me, a skirmish game... I should never have more than 15 models on the table, but it's not just the number of models. It's also do they have to move in packs or in squads, or does this guy get to go over here and hide behind this rock, and this guy gets to go over here, and then they try to make a crossfire or whatever, that kind of stuff. For me, that's the big deal. One of the reasons that I wasn't interested in one-page rules Grimdark Firefight at first was because when I first bought the PDF, it was like $5 for the fancy PDF, and I started flipping through it, they were showing there was a diagram, a big diagram on one of the pages that showed how you move in coherency, and I'm like, I thought this game was supposed to be a skirmish game, but why am I going to move squads? Well, it wasn't until sometime later, when I had ignored it for quite a while, that I went back and read, and I'm like, only certain units might move in squads. There are certain units that are just like, these guys move in groups, but the majority of your army is all individuals for the most part. And so I did not know that initially, but it sort of first turned me off when I looked at the PDF on that page, and I'm like, well, I don't want to move people in squads, like the new, who's the company? Parabellum Games makes a game called Conquest, and there's their army style game, which is rank and flank, which I'm not super into rank and flank, but then they're like, hey, we made this other new game that's a skirmish version. It's called like First Blood, I believe. And I did a demo of it at Gen Con and found out that it is basically Age of Sigmar. It is designed where, like, yeah, you have a bigger creature or an individual, but then if you ever have like a group of 5 guys who are the same, they move in squads just like you do in Age of Sigmar. So it was kind of like, to me, I'm like, okay, well, that's still in my mind not skirmish gaming particularly. And that's the thing, like, that's the difference between, like, say, that Grimdark Firefight versus that First Blood, is that in First Blood you have some individuals, but almost everybody moves in squads, whereas in Firefight, the one-page rules game, it's very easy to make a group that doesn't have any squads in it. You can have everybody be individuals. It's only if you go with, like, penal colony, conscripts, or like these kind of like real, definitely horde type creatures, then you move them in groups where they have to stay in coherency. But you can easily just build a list that just doesn't have anybody who has to go into coherency, and then it's fine. These are the things that I think about sometimes. So anyway, yeah. I hope that's an answer. I don't know that it's a good answer, but it's there. Figure Dudes of America. There you go. Let's see here. I do sourcing for my company. If I wasn't bald before, I certainly would be with the current global shipping cluster. Yep, no, I can totally understand that. 5 Parsecs from Home, written specifically for solo play, has deliberately stripped down rules so you can play without forgetting loads of rules. I think it's helpful for that, honestly, yeah. And I like 5 Parsecs. I really do. Florida doesn't sound so bad after waking up with 3 inches of snow in north central Wisconsin. Yeah. I mean, it's going to go away pretty quick. Like I said, by Wednesday, it's supposed to be in the 50s, so, eh. Is it pronounced Kalmoth, like Chimera? I don't know. Like, they talked about it I was at an event at Gen Con where they talked about it, and as I don't remember them pronouncing it weirdly, I just remember the word felt weird in my mouth. But to be fair, the audio wasn't great in that room. They didn't have the best, the microphones and where they were. Yeah, so it's sometimes hard to tell. 5 Parsecs from Home is the game of the discerning gentleman, or gentle person, I'm assuming. There you go. Infinity is probably the poster child for too many roles. Yeah, I could see that. How many Cool Mini or Not games do you have, and are they all painted? I was going to say no Cool Mini or Not, but I really wanted to get into Wrath of Kings, and then they sort of discontinued it, which sucks because I liked the game quite a bit, and I painted House Hadros stuff and was adding more to it when they stopped selling it and discontinued it. And I was like, cool. And I was fine to keep playing and going down that road, but then the folks that I was like going to play with were like, "Oh, it got discontinued." So, and then that didn't. So there you go. Again, you can play a game even though it's been discontinued, but not if the people who all want to play the game don't want to play the game because it's discontinued, which is a bummer. And then what was the other one? I have a Force for Dark Age, which was they had 2 miniature games that they were like, these are our 2 miniature games, and then they decided, yeah, Wrath of Kings, no, we're going to put all of our eggs in the Dark Age basket. And Dark Age was a worse game, in my opinion. And that was after playing it several times, and every time being like, huh, this is the way the rule works? And the person who was very good at it was like, yeah, that's the way the rule works. I'm like, that doesn't make any, that's really stupid. And they're like, oh. And I think that's been discontinued now too. So yeah, I've got stuff painted for House Hadros, but not enough for like a full-blown army. I have a full-blown, like, that's the thing that was sort of also nice about Dark Age, was that it was designed to be played again in skirmish style. I think my force for Dark Age was less than 10 models. It was like 8 or something like that. And they were cool and fun to paint, and I enjoyed them, but the game was kind of blech. And now all they do is board games that have lots and lots and lots of miniatures in them, so I don't own any of those. And I'm going to continue to call them Cool Mini or not. I don't care how much they want to be called Simon or Come On or whatever. It's Cool Mini or not. It's a place you used to go to vote up and down on whether someone's models were cool or not. Let's see here. 5 Leagues from the Borderlands 3rd edition is going to be nuts. It's jam-packed fun full of good stuff. I'm looking forward to checking it out. I'm glad that they've started working with Modifius to be able, because Modifius is doing like the layout and the artwork and all that kind of stuff for these games. And so it makes the stuff look a lot nicer, which makes it, appeal more to a broader audience, that kind of stuff. Kings of War is a fantastic game. It's an army game, but due to multi-basing, it feels like a skirmish game. Interesting. Finally got to catch a stream. I'm trying to promote my Kickstarter, which is some sci-fi aliens. Do you have any places to promote it specifically geared to our miniature agnostic games? No, I don't. Yeah, I don't even know where you advertise Kickstarters and stuff like that. That's a tough one. I have not, frankly, like when we didn't do a Kickstarter with our game, but we just, we already had a platform, me and Vince, because we're doing this. So that was helpful, obviously, a lot. But, and we reached out to some other YouTubers and stuff like that, and some folks kind of talked about it a little bit, and a lot of folks didn't. But, it's an uphill battle for sure, absolutely. I remember Warhammer Fantasy Battles, and I played Empire typical armies over 100 models. Oh yeah, big, like, especially back then, that was definitely the case. Mordheim with its model cap is awesome. I think that model caps can be super important. I mean, sometimes you can do it just via points. You can just be like, there's no way possible for you to take more than this many models. Warcry has that for the most part. Like, I have, my biggest Warcry warband is 13 Plague Monks, so Skaven Plague Monks. And that's I think it's dead on 1,000 points, or it's like 995. So I don't, I played yesterday Stormcast, I have 5 guys in my thing. And there's I gotta be honest with you, I think that having more models is better in that game than having fewer models. My models were very tough against Sam's Untamed Beasts. They're Stormcast. They've got the guys with the shields have got toughness 6. I mean, they're kind of gross that way, and they get 20 hit points, except for the leader, it's got 30. But they don't move real quick, and if it's an objective game, if you've only got 5 guys, it's hard to get on, say, 3 objectives, you know what I mean, or something like that. So I've had a lot better luck playing with my Skaven, even though they're only 8 hit points, and they don't necessarily hit super hard. When they crit, they hit hard. Their normal damage is 1/5, so that means that if they do, a normal hit against somebody, they do 1 point of damage, but if they do a crit by rolling a 6, they do 5 points of damage, which, when we played at Dragonfall, Sam and I, at one point, one rat walked up and slapped one of his Stormcast and did 15 points of damage against a 20-point model in one, roll, because I got 3 crits, which was dope. Anyway, so yeah. I've painted forces in most cases more than 2 for 7 games that I think of offhand. There might be a couple I'm forgetting. I mean, and that's always nice. I think that's one of the things I love about having games that are miniature agnostic, is that you can have a bunch of different warbands, and as long as they kind of fit in multiple games, if I'm going to play Star Breach, I'm not going to put my 1980s kind of guys in mop gear in Star Breach. They've got AK-47s and M16s, and they're wearing big weird NBC kind of weapon. It's just that wouldn't go in Star Breach, but sci-fi dudes are sci-fi dudes otherwise. So like if you're playing with a bunch of, so there's a lot of overlap you can do in some situations. You know what I mean? Like I'm painting those guys. I have painted those guys from Eureka Miniatures with the guns and all the biological gear and stuff like that. Those guys are for Zona Alpha. But if I come across another game that is kind of like Zona Alpha, maybe post-apocalyptic, maybe modern day, but all kinds of things like but modern day military, but you're fighting against Cthulhu monsters or stuff like that, those guys are going to work in a bunch of different places, as opposed to like I've painted these models are really only good for this one game. I like to kind of spread things around more if I can. It doesn't always work 100%, but How are you dealing with the stress of being our hobby's sex symbol? I'm not dealing with it. That sounds like a terrible idea. I don't think that's rough. If that's that's not good. Let's see here. It makes sense for an individual model to get a morale or shooting bonus when a friend is within 2 inches. I can see that in some if you're going to have morale rules, which some games obviously just go, well, we're not going to do that. Like we didn't really do that at all in Reign in Hell, and they took it out of the new Kill Team. There's really no morale rules there. There could be a benefit certainly to like if you're within a certain distance, if you're playing a skirmish game where everybody can be wherever, when you bring a couple folks together, especially for hand-to-hand fighting, you should be able to get some sort of benefits for that, because now I'm not fighting against one guy, it's me and my friend fighting against you, and then that should be giving so yeah, having things like that totally makes sense, I think. Let's see here. I think it scrolled. Dang it. Good morning from dark and chilly Alaska. How you doing? Streamlined or tempo dynamic? Ooh. Which Warcry warbands do you recommend to start with? Honestly, it depends on what you like. It also depends on like if you buy. So if you buy one of the starter boxes and it comes with some models in it, then that's not a bad thing to start with, because they're usually those models are pretty nice. Now, there are folks out there that will tell you the specific Warcry warbands are underpowered versus the regular Age of Sigmar warbands that you could build as well by buying those books. There may be math to back that up. I'm not a mathematician scientist, so I don't know, but I can tell you that my Stormcast got their butt kicked twice yesterday by the Untamed Beasts, and Untamed Beasts are a normal like Warcry specific warband. So it's not necessarily always the case, but there are some like definitely Care-Drawn Overlords or Card-Drawn Overlords, whatever they're pronounced. They are massively difficult to beat in Warcry because you can build a list that has just these gross guns that just lights everybody up on the table, and that's like Sam is like I've been playing with these guys. He's like I've stopped playing with them because they're too unfair. He says they're just gross. I've been doing pretty well with my Skaven, and I want to do more Skaven, but I kind of want to do it in a way that, like, again, I don't think that my list is overpowered, but it is considerably easier to play that game when you have 13 models to move around. Even though they're weaker and they don't do as much damage, you can take objectives a lot easier when you have 13 activations in a round versus you play against, like, I've played against Sam's Stormcast where he's got 5 models and I've got 13. It's real tough for him to get traction, especially in the actual objectives. He can go around and just slap down all of my rats pretty quickly, but there's 13 of them and he's only got 5 guys. So, it numbers in that game are helpful. So if you can find a list that you like and you think is cool, but it's also not just like 5 or 6 models, it's, maybe more like 10, you're probably going to do a little bit better, at least early on. I don't want to call it easy mode by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that playing with the fewest amount of models that you can have on the board is definitely hard mode in that particular game. So, if I can't take my anger out at community managers, then who am I going to yell at? That was from a while ago. I'm way behind, but yeah, that's sure. Let's see here. How do you feel about the release of the Bulge U.S. Army stuff from Flames of War? I am more interested in what they will do for the British. I haven't heard anything about Flames of War lately. I played a little bit, and I think it was 2nd edition, but I haven't really looked at it much in quite some time, unfortunately. We were enjoying it to some degree. To be perfectly frank, my friends and I, when we would sit down to play, back when we were all playing, we had a lot more fun setting up the terrain and making ourselves a fun little village than actually playing. The playing part was kind of like, yeah, we got to look at the rules again, because we didn't play that frequently, so we had a hard time remembering the rules. But it was a lot of fun. Like, I got a friend who got really good at making bocage, like that, like those rock walls that the trees grow out of and stuff like that. He got very, very good at like using like a half-round piece of molding and then gluing a strip of Brillo pad to it, and then using that as the basis of the clump kind of foam stuff and gluing a bunch of that to it, and he would glue little rocks to the half. It was like a whole thing, but it looked amazing. And he made 15 feet of bocage, not all one piece. That would have been stupid, but you know what I mean. If you put them all end to end, he made a ton of it, and so we always had great looking tables, and we were painting the tanks, and tanks aren't that hard to paint, frankly. So we had, it was a lot of fun to look at, but the game itself, we were kind of like, what happens when my tank blows up again? Is that bad? It was just, yeah, I don't know. It was weird. So, and we haven't been playing that game at all lately. So I just look at I've got like a couple of foam trays full of some U.S. tanks and some troops, and I'm like, oh, yeah, there you go. So. Played Tiny Epic Zombies with a mate on Friday for the 2nd time. Was a real nail-biter this time, but managed to pull off the win. He's now researching which Tiny Epic games he might like. Oh, that's kind of cool. Let's see here. Okay, now what is going on? Chat is being weird today. Not you folks, the actual technology of chat. Like, I thought I was at the end, and then all of a sudden it, like, did a thing, and I don't know. Hey, Zambies, how you doing? Just got home after Salute on Sunday. Good to chill out with a stream. Hey, Nick, how you doing? I hope I saw some pictures you posted from Salute. I'm glad I hope things went well there. One of these days, I would like to go to Salute. We will see. One of these days, I would like to leave the country again. We will see. I just try and sneakily get someone to mention Monkey Bits as a means to advertise my stuff. Otherwise, I would get around to Kickstarter. I don't know what Monkey Bits is. Sorry. My biggest issue is finding people to play with. I live in a small town. Yeah, and that's, like I said, that's why we're working to bring Game 4 back and everything like that. But as a stopgap, the only good solution sometimes, if there is a store in town, that's sometimes a place at least to find other folks that play. If you don't have a store in town, a game store of any kind, or if you've got a game store but they don't handle miniatures or anything like that, it becomes tougher, which is why we're working to bring Game 4 back, certainly. Let's see here. I have 2 boxes of Dominion, a small fleet of KO, and a Necron army. Never played a game or finished a project. I call that a problem. Find much more enjoyment painting random models from hardcore minis. I mean, there are plenty of people out there who just paint to have fun, and there's nothing wrong with that either. I spent some time yesterday evening, my next Warcry warband after I get these Chaos Slaves to Darkness guys done, which they're getting close to being done on Twitch. I've been painting on Twitch. Here's a button I can push. There you go. There's me on Twitch right there. That's not me. That's me, but it's not on Twitch. I'm in a bathroom there. Anyway, yeah, Monday nights 7 p.m. Central, Friday mornings 10 a.m. Central. Lately, I've been painting Slaves to Darkness models for Warcry that are from the Slaves to Darkness Start Collecting box. They're just great sculpts. And I'm finishing up right now by working on this Chaos Lord riding on this Krakadrak or Karkadrak or Crack-a-lack-a-ding-dong, whatever his name is. He's a big lizard dog. And but after I get him done, then I'm going to do a quick project with some Ossiarch Bone Reapers for Warcry as well. There's a Bone Shaper and I think maybe an Immortal or a Stalker or something like that. He's a big guy. And then there's some just regular Mortek guards, some with great swords, some with spears, some with swords and shields, that kind of stuff. But it's maybe tops like 11 models, I think, something like that. So I'm looking forward to doing that too. And it's just a lot of fun. I enjoy, just working on those projects and that kind of stuff, and having a game to actually work on them for me is a big deal. I like having that, down the road. But there are plenty of people who are just like, I like painting stuff just to have it painted because it's a lot of fun to paint. And that's also very cool. Stormcast and Warcry are fun, like once, but they're kind of gross. Like, they're gross, but they're hard to win with, I think. At least, I don't know. There's the smaller... the Vanguard or Varangard? No, not Varangard. Vanguard. The ones that are more like scouts that have less armor and stuff like that. They're probably fewer points, and I might be able to build almost 6 or 7 in a 1,000-point list as opposed to only being able to have 5. And I might try those guys out because, and I don't know if I have a box. I think I have a box of those somewhere. I might try those guys out for a Warcry group just because it would be. It just give me, hopefully, still some of the toughness, but also slightly more models than just 5. So my Kickstarter of the Uncle Adam calendar should be rethought. Yes. Yes, it should. I've been thinking of... I've been kind of digging the idea of making historicals and sci-fi stuff in a way, stuff like All Quiet on the Martian Front. I like the concept of alternate history, like that kind of stuff. Conflict 47, All Quiet on the Martian Front is also very cool. Alternate history stuff I'm interested by, frankly. If I get a miniature session in on average once a week, I'm pretty happy. Yeah. Been working on designing a game with my son, and there's been a lot of debate about who complex to make the rules. Yeah. Just about to leave to play A Song of Ice and Fire at my local club here in South Wales. Oh yeah, I forgot about that game. So that is technically, they are still technically making a miniatures game. That's right. I forgot about Song of Ice and Fire. It's rank and flank, which is not to my particular liking. I don't like the moving the rectangles of guys around and stuff like that. But I know that some people have been digging it, and so that's cool. That's pretty cool. Confirmed Twitch is a bathroom. Well, that's actually the bathroom at the Reptile Palace, which is a bar. And I just wanted it to look kind of punk rock, and it's a pretty punk rock looking bathroom. And so I was in there. You can't really tell. The picture didn't come out quite as well as I would have liked, but I had a rattle can, and it looked like I was priming models there in the bathroom, which I wasn't because it's my friend's bar, and I wouldn't do that. That seems mean. But yeah, that was the idea. Someday Adam will remember how to pronounce Karkadrak. Maybe. Maybe not. Slaves Darkness Kid is great, but my god, the horses are just a drag to build. Yeah, I'm not doing the horses. I think I might put them up on eBay. I don't... The Karkadrak thing, it was also a super drag to build, and I failed. I couldn't build it. I could never get it to go together properly. The bony carapace that runs along the top of his back just never properly seated on the rest of the model because they made that model thousands of parts. All right, not thousands, but they made it way too many parts for basically just being a big lizard dog. There was no reason that a single leg needed to be 4 parts. I was looking at... I opened up a box at the local shop recently because they didn't have shrink wrap on them. It's kind of a jerk move to rip the shrink wrap and start looking inside the box. But this is the Citadel white boxes that they send that they don't shrink wrap, when they don't have any more boxes anymore. And it was the old Chaos Marauders. And yeah, they're not great necessarily sculpts, but boy, there is something for you put 2 halves of the horse together and then you're done. And you put the rider on there, maybe you put on a head or something, that I don't know. I don't want to build those knights is what I don't want to do. So like I said, I'll probably throw them up on eBay or something at some point. Let me see here. I got a cute email from a customer. Stop sending me emails in the middle of the night. I love responding to the technologically adept. Sure. I mean, stop sending me emails. Well, don't answer your emails in the middle of the night. Go to bed. It's fine. And in some places, it's not the middle of the night. Some places, it's broad daylight. But, you may live on the other side of the planet. Let's see here. Shout out to Spords while we were here too. Yeah, I was definitely using my leader of my Stormcast bros yesterday. He was definitely swinging the big Spord, which is a spear sword. It's kind of like a spork, but it's a spear sword. Birds and doggos with the Stormcast make them more agile in the OPSEC game. Yeah, I could definitely understand that. I kind of want to build at least the doggos that look like birds. But yeah, I definitely want to do that. What project, model, whatever challenged you the most in 2021? Which was your favorite in 2021? Gosh, that's a good question. I would say probably one of the projects that has challenged me most was maybe me working on that Redemptor Dreadnought that looks like all abandoned and stuff like that I've been working on. Like, I'm not using him for 40k. He's just going to be like an abandoned robot sort of situation. I think he was pretty challenging just to kind of get the look of the... And I don't know that I necessarily succeeded, but I'm trying to get a look of him like being out on the battlefield for a long time and having a lot of rain damage and rust damage and stuff like that over time, over decades potentially. I don't know if it was my favorite, but it was definitely one of the more challenging things that I've painted. And he's not finished even, frankly, to be honest with you. So there's that too. Good afternoon from a chilly Scotland. I finished my Genesealer Cults Ambot. Oh, that's fun. Is Genesealer Cults Ambot for my Necromunda gang? Or just I'm not GSC. Anyway. Lord help me, I've fallen down a gunplow rabbit hole. Oh, yeah. No, the Ambot's a lot of fun, though. I really enjoyed it. I've built a couple of him. I think at least 2. Started a hobby club in my area for Age of Sigmar. Good on you for doing that, honestly. Restrooms are official punk rock, indeed, especially high contrast black and white. It'll make nearly any bathroom into a punk rock bathroom. That's all you got to do. One dude at my hobby club keeps turning up with new resin army every week. How do you politely tell him to spend a bit more time painting one of the various armies rather than printing more? I mean, if he just wants to print a bunch of armies, he could do that, I guess. Yeah, it's more fun to play against a painted one, that's for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have to... I basically kind of... I'm just... If a person shows up and just never paints, eventually I'm going to not particularly want to play against them anymore because I enjoy playing against a painted army. It adds to the overall immersion. And, then maybe they can go play against somebody else. But yeah, it's hard to broach. You just want to go, hey, dude, I'm not going to play you anymore because you won't ever paint. But you just maybe are just like, oh, yeah, no, I don't think I can play on Saturday. Or I don't know. I don't know. You could just be like, hey, if you were to paint your stuff, I'd be much more interested in playing. You can be blunt about it. It depends on what your particular level of comfortability in that situation is. But yeah, I think of the old images of the bathrooms at CBGB. See, that's kind of what I was trying to look for there. It is, like I said, it is a bit of a punk rock bathroom. There's a lot of graffiti and shenanigans and whatnot all over the place, and that's fine, and stickers and whatnot. So yeah, that's I think. That was kind of what I was trying to go for. I'm wearing the kind of, the punk rock pachow shirt, as I refer to it. So there you go. Building a model horse muscle by muscle sounds swell. Not if you screw up step 2 and don't quite get the glue to sit at just the right angle. And then by the time you get to step 21, you're like, well, none of this fits anymore because, it just sort of compounded from, there are certain models that GW will make where you're like, well, obviously this part just marries perfectly to this part. This is going to be easy. And then there's other times, depends on the models. I've been finding it with the arms on the OCR Bone Shaper, who does this a lot, like that. That's what the guy looks like in the model. His arms didn't just go, oh, this is obviously where they go. I kind of had to basically glue them and then put activator on them to get them to sit. Because there was no they were certainly not push fit in any way, shape, or form, but they also weren't You know how like Space Marine arms, like you got like the cup and then the ball of the arm so you can kind of position the arm? It was like there was a weird shape inside where the arm was supposed to go into the socket, but it didn't seem to match the arm. And I was like, I only have the 2 arms here, and I know this arm is supposed to go there. It's a really weird model to build, and thank God for Activator. You know what I mean? And the Carcadron, whatever, no, Crack-a-Lack-a Ding Dong, whatever, that guy is same way. He, like, there's parts that are just like, I guess these attach to each other, but it's not. It just was not easy. I've had plenty of models from them that have been a dream to put together, but that Bone Shaper, his arm, everything else was fine. Arms, it didn't want to go on right, in my opinion. Crack-a-Drac, terrible. And honestly, the Corvus Cabal. I love the look of the Corvus Cabal, but there's no... When you glue stuff on, it's just sort of like, yeah, I guess it's supposed to go roughly here. And I don't understand why they do that. It's weird. Let's see here. He has his own resin printer, so one week it's gray Minotaurs, and the next week it's gray Skaven, and I'm like, the whole point of print to P2G is to encourage completing a project? I mean, I suppose, sure. Oh, Path to Glory, right? Yeah, good point. Okay, I see what you're saying there. Stop writing new rosters and just try some stuff to get some guys done. Form a bond. I don't want to gatekeep, but I also don't want to gatekeep tough stuff. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. You don't want to be like, look, you're doing it wrong. But it is 2 to tango, and I don't necessarily want to constantly play against somebody who... Like, again, if they change their army every week, I'd be like, okay, cool. I get to try out, my tactics versus multiple different types of armies. And I like to play skirmish games so that I can also switch armies relatively quickly. But if every week it's another gray army, and you're just not even interested in painting, it makes my game worse too. You know what I mean? Or as well, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. There are plenty of people out there who like, no, you should never paint armies at all. It's stupid. And I'm like, well, you should play other people who think that same way. And I'll paint the people who think the way I play, and there we go. I'm not trying to keep you out of the hobby. I just don't, like, again, if you've just started, if you've just built your first army and they're gray, but you want to try them out, absolutely, not a problem. But if you're just like, I don't really see myself ever painting these, I'm just going to print another one, or I'm going to build another one, but I just don't like painting or whatever, then that's... Again, do what you like, but I'll do what I like over here, I guess, is my personal opinion. I've taught and coached a couple new painters in the last decade. It takes patience and tact, but the student has to want to actually do it and improve. Yeah, I don't even know that you have to improve, frankly. But as long as you're attempting it, I'm on board. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying your army has to look awesome. I just want it to be at least painted. I like the effort to be there. That's all I really, really personally want. You know what I mean? I'm not saying, well, I would paint against your army, but the highlights on the guy's staff there that he's holding, it's not quite good enough. No, not at all. Like, I've seen stuff that's just like super fast painted. Give it a spray base coat and some dry brush and pick out a couple of details. Boom, done. Great, that's fine. But just straight gray, I'm just not. It's not my jam. The bathroom picture screams Ramones. Well, that's what I was hoping for, frankly. But so that's good to hear. Let's see here. I miss disgusting punk rock clubs. After turning 40, it seems like those shows are always too late at night. Well, that's also, again, that's true. That's a good point. That's how most of the limbs on GW models now, there's a small notch and a small cutout that should go together, but they often don't. It was just weird. Like, I don't understand that. Like, at the very least, why not just make it so there's like, there's like a hole, right, that maybe has like a specific kind of uneven shape, and then there's the post on the arm that just goes into that hole. It doesn't have to be a round post, kind of like in the push fit stuff, but a lot of times I've seen this in the past where like, this only seats properly when it goes in this one way. So I was expecting that, but instead it was just... I don't know, I don't want to buy another one of them just to make a point and just be like, I don't understand what's going on here, like with a bunch of close macro photography. But I spent quite some time on it trying to figure out how this was supposed to go. And eventually what I did was I looked at the package to see what the position on his arm was supposed to be. And then I put a lot of glue there. And then I just dropped a glob of activator on it. And then it locked it in. And then I was like, well, I mean, it looks like... It's going to paint over and look weird because it's just going to be a big fuzzy lump of glue holding his arm there, but I don't know. It was very strange. Like I said, rest of the model went together great, but both arms were weird. I don't know why. Having just got a 3D printer, I'm having a hard time to fight the temptation to print off every cool mini I come across. I have a 3D printer, but I have not yet got it set up yet, and you all know the story there. I'm ventilation is harder than I thought, as it turns out, in that room. I thought I could just go, oh, well, I'll just take this window out in the basement window and put a new pane, not of glass, but of like MDF or something like that, put a vent thing in and all that kind of stuff. As I've been looking relatively recently, there's actually, because it's a smart thing to do and better for insulation, there's not just one window in the basement, there's 2 windows in the basement. So there's the inside and the outside window. So I'd have to, so I'm trying to figure that out and whatnot. I may just get, I've also seen people recently talking, I think it was on Twitch, somebody was like, I just got a big air filter, like a room air filter, and set it in the room, and then that helped as well. So I don't know. I still got to figure it out, but I do want to start 3D printing stuff, but I'm not going to 3D print armies, maybe skirmish warbands. It's going to be a lot more single folks here and there. Although really, it's a smarter idea to try to print more versus less sometimes. You know what I mean? The way that resin printers work in comparison to filament printers is that if you had the build plate of your filament printer and you paint and you had little doodads, but you had 30 of them on the filament printer, it would take 30 times as long, roughly, because it has to basically draw each layer of each one, and that head has to move to each one of these whatever little bits or doodads or whatever. But with a resin printer, because there's no head having to move and it's just basically exposing each slice of the thing, the speed of the resin printer is completely based off of height. So if you printed a single thing that was this high, it would take just as long to print as if you printed 30 of them all over the build plate that were still this high. It would just take as long. So I think that that's why you see people who are like, I'm going to print as many of these models at once as possible because it will take just as much time as if I only printed one guy who was this high, that kind of thing. So, but obviously it's resin. It's more resin gets eaten up by the actual process, but time is a thing that you can not buy more of. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. Yeah. I see some players who don't even bother cutting off the sprue connections. I mean, yeah. Offer to help them paint their setup, just like a painting day. They might feel stuck at painting. They may never try. So for him, painting a new army could deliver the same high pride as painted. I mean, yeah, I like the concept. I wish more stores would do that. I think that stores need to do, like, painting days or, like, hey, I mean, because maybe it's a situation of, like, you just... I love to paint by myself. That's my favorite way. I throw on audiobook, podcast, whatever, and just sit there and just paint. But there are some folks that can't, they need to be talking to people while they're painting or whatever, whether it's like on a Discord thing, or they need to be in person and all that kind of stuff. So that could also be an issue too that slows people down sometimes. But like I said, I've talked to plenty of people who, not plenty, I guess. I've talked to, thankfully, more people who are interested in actually painting the stuff, but I have talked to folks as well who are just like, I just don't do it because I don't want to. But I still want to play the games and push them around and all that kind of stuff. And again, that's, I'm not going to tell them not to do it, but I'm not particularly interested in playing with them because I like to see the overall immersion of everything kind of put together or painted, even if they're not painted great. I'm not a great painter. I'm playing against Sam yesterday. I mean, like, there's definitely a difference in quality there between Sam's stuff and mine, but still, it works out pretty well. Let's see here. Storage of models can be a problem. Running out of space fast here. Oh, yeah, definitely. I think you actually need a legitimate vent. For airbrush and stuff, you're trying to filter out the tiny particles. With the printer, you're actually trying to vent noxious gas. Yeah, no, it's definitely vapors or not vapors. Fumes? I don't know. I don't know the difference between vapors and fumes, frankly. I'm sure there's a scientific difference. But it is that as opposed to particulate, yeah. And with particulate, like, I don't even bother venting particulate in my airbrush room. I wear one of those things with the filters on the side, the rubber thing goes over your face, and it works fine. And then, admittedly, I get, paint dust that lands over everything in that room, but it's a small little room, and I just kind of wipe away the dust every year or so. But if I was trying to, like, airbrush here in the dining room, I would definitely want one of those like hoods that sucks up the particulate into a filter and all that kind of stuff, because otherwise I would get paint dust all over the dining room, and then that would not be good for anybody. But with resin, you're right. It's not. It's the actual gas, I guess, as opposed to a particulate. And so I'm still trying to figure that out. I don't know. Resin method is also good for printing duplicates. One for you, one for a friend, different part. Yeah, I can see that. I saw Time for Sale at a grocery store yesterday. That's not the same stuff. But I know what you're saying. I'm very close with the store owner, and the guy has a question. The guy in question is a pro painter, been playing for years. Well, that's cool. STL collecting is almost as addictive as minis. It takes up a lot less space, though. I mean, physical space, certainly. But yeah. Is there a term yet for digital pile of shame? I don't know if there's... Yeah. I would occasionally get in and help host painting days in my local store, but it hasn't been open since the pandemic started. Yep, that makes sense. Sure. I like painting with streamers while they paint. That's cool. You can tell he's just got a printer and can't make his mind up. It's very awkward, but the rest of the guys pretty much using GW stuff and painting every new unit they add. It's awesome. Nice. I find that I like to paint at stores, and when I get home, I paint faster because I'm wanting to make up for the time spent painting slowly at the store. Yeah, I mean, the other thing, too, is that I like having all my stuff, and I don't want to have to carry it. Like, I'll definitely go to a store and hang out and build. That I don't, but, like, I have, like, lots and lots and lots of paints, and if I'm sitting at the store and I'm like, man, I really wish I had the mahogany color, but I left it at home because I never used that color, but now I kind of wish I did, then that's a bummer as far as paints are concerned. Whereas with building, it's like you need clippers and glue and a couple of little emery boards and a X-Acto blade and a little thing that you use to scrape the mold lines and that kind of jazz, and there you go. So that can be in a lot smaller kit. You don't need as much stuff. What clear coat should I be using? Currently using Army Painter matte, but still pretty shiny. Don't want to spend hours on a paint job to have it ruined by a bad clear coat. I don't know of a good clear coat rattle can anymore. It used to be Tester's Dull Coat. Tester's Dull Coat used to be my go-to, but I believe that they've changed the formula in some reason because the old one was deadly or something terrible like that. And now it's still a decent varnish. It's not particularly matte. Like, it doesn't feel like it's as flat as it used to be. So that's I don't have a great answer for that. If you're looking at rattle can, if you're looking at spray can, if you're looking at airbrush and spraying it through an airbrush, then your best bet is probably, there's an ultra matte varnish from Ammo by MIG, I believe. Ammo by MIG, M-I-G. That I think works pretty well. And I know that Monument Hobbies is soon going to be releasing, hopefully soon-ish, I don't know about by the end of the year, but beginning part of maybe next year, they're going to be releasing their own matte varnish, and they're trying to make it as matte as possible and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. But I generally use matte varnish through my airbrush these days. I don't use rattle cans anymore, mainly because, A, I can do it whenever I want, even if it's winter, like it is today. But also, I just haven't found any rattle cans lately that have been actually flat. It used to be Tester's Dull Coat, but it's not as flat as it used to be. So not actually any good help there if you're looking for rattle cans, unfortunately. But yeah. I don't really like painting minis, but I do enjoy gaming, so my version of a painted mini has become primer, 1 or 2 colors, and maybe an air dry brush. Not the prettiest, but it looks way better than no paint. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see here. Just hobbying while listening to this. Love to have something on and just listening in. Yeah, I could. I mean, like I said, I need to listen to something while I'm painting. It's just kind of really important. Rust-Oleum chalked clear coat. I've never heard of that stuff. I should take a look at that. I think you take screenshots of your STL folders. Oh, there you go. I got 3D printer for terrain. Now I'm building full Shore Trooper armor. Once started, never knew where you end up. like for like cosplay, like you're building shore trooper armor for yourself. That's kind of cool. Yeah, no, like the filament 3D printers are great for terrain, like bigger pieces of terrain. Whereas resin is great for like scattered terrain and obviously models. I think it's better for that. So. Let's see. Are people talking about different types of rattle cans that they like to use? Mr. Super Clear rattle cans. I've never heard of them. Brownells Alumnahide Matte Clear. Never heard of that brand either. They might be overseas brands, or not U.S. brands. Makes sense. For rattle can, my favorite are Tamiya Flat. Works well and relatively hard to overspray. I've seen Tamiya products at a local Hobbytown, USA, but I don't know if I've ever seen their flat varnish. I should take a look at that. Let's see here. Krylon flat clear rattle can works great for me. Found at about any auto parts store. See, I like Krylon stuff, like their camouflage rattle can stuff. I love. Use it a lot, but I've never found a big like normal name brand rattle can that the matte is actually matte. You know what I mean? I've had success with Rust-Oleum Dead Flat. I've never even heard of that. Huh, that's kind of cool. Good flat out of rattle can has gotten very hard to find after testers changed formula. Yeah, like I said, like testers used to be the best, and then all of a sudden they had some sort of formula change, and now I was like, this isn't particularly matte varnish at all. It's still varnish, but it's like semi-gloss, you know? What do you listen to while painting? Generally, podcasts or audiobooks. Lately for podcasts, I listen to Last Podcast on the Left. From that same network, there's another podcast called No Dogs in Space, which is all about music. Their first season was all about punk, the history of punk. And the second season is all about the history of alternative music. And they're starting with Velvet Underground, which has been very good. They do a lot of research, and they're also just a lot of fun to listen to and all that kind of stuff, so I enjoy that. For audiobooks, I kind of hop around a lot between a lot of different things. Lately, I've been listening to the Ravnor from series, I guess, from Black Library. So Ravnor is an Inquisitor, and it's written by Dan Abnett, who I'm a big fan of. I like Dan's work quite a bit. Brownells is made in the US of A, baby. I've never heard of Brownells. It's a gun coating. Oh. Wasn't Testers bought out by Krylon? I haven't heard that. Maybe. Totally agree with Rust-Oleum Dead Flat. Good control trigger, too. I'll have to see if I can find some of that. That sounds kind of cool. Because, yeah, if I could find a good can of, like, rattle can flat varnish, that would be super helpful for terrain at the very least. Like, I'm still going to probably just use the varnishes in my airbrush when I'm trying to work on just single models or even multiple models to varnish them. I'm pretty happy with that. But for terrain, if you want to make it flat and also varnish it a bit, it's a good flat is really nice to find if you can find it in a rattle can. I use Rust-Oleum 2X flat, or 2X matte, sorry. I've always had good results. Home Depot always has it in stock, so that's a bonus. I was at a local, where was I? Not a Home Depot, a local place like Home Depot called Menards. It's kind of a Midwest sort of a thing. And the last time I was there, their entire rattle can area was just barren. And I'm assuming it's, again, shipping is the issue. So, Winsor & Newton matte varnish spray cans are great. Very matte, protects well enough. I had no idea that Winsor & Newton made spray cans. That's crazy. I'll be darned. Yeah, no, I've never had any idea about that. That's interesting. Like, matte varnish is important, I think. Well, again, and you may prefer gloss. The only time I ever use gloss varnish is I use it with a brush if I am trying to make something look wet. And it's after I've already done the matte varnish. So you do the matte varnish, you spray it on there, whether it's with an airbrush or a rattle can or whatever you use, and then you have an open wound on your Nurgle guy that you want to look wet. You're going to go in there with a brush and a little bit of gloss varnish. I usually use stuff from Games Workshop, actually, called Technical Art Coat. And so you take the Ard Coat in there, which is a shiny gloss varnish, and then you just paint that in there, and then it will just basically look wet from now on because it's shiny in comparison to the rest of the model, which is generally flat if you've already done the flat varnish, and that's very cool. I've also used it for like puddles a little bit, like if you're like on the base, if you want to make an area look like it's wet, like a puddle kind of, you can put a bunch of that stuff in there and paint it in there, and then kind of even just heavy load your brush. Like after you've painted the area that's going to be the puddle, then you kind of, and if it's, especially if it's got a bit of an indentation in that spot, you kind of heavy load the brush a little bit to even add more, and then it will sort of flatten out a bit, and then it'll look more like a puddle. Or even if you're just trying to make something look like mud generally is shiny as well because it's wet. So yeah, I will use gloss varnish for that kind of stuff. But otherwise, for like normal models, I prefer just doing a good matte varnish over that. Well, you save big money at Menards. That's what I hear. That's true. My D&D table imploded this weekend. One player wasn't vaxxed, and one other went with him. So 2 left, and I'm the DM. Game tomorrow. 1 shot or wrap up the campaign. Make it rain, mummy, lord, liches. Ooh, that's no fun. Yeah, no, that sucks. That's, I mean, that's a thing you got to really pay attention to. I'm getting my booster shot Tuesday? I think it's Tuesday. Tuesday afternoon I'm getting a booster shot, so that'll be fun. Is there a particular airbrush varnish that's recommended? Like I said, I like the stuff from Ammo by MIG. They make an ultramatte varnish that's nice, but that's my personal preference. I get Rust-Oleum 302151 on Amazon, though I'm sure it's cheaper at Lowe's or Walmart or whatever if it's in stock. If it's in stock, that's always the thing, yeah. I love matte finish. The matter, the better. I really want my stuff to look, because it's rare that I want things to look like soldiers and stuff like that generally aren't shiny. You can say that, yeah, maybe Space Marines should be kind of shiny to some degree, but the material that Space Marines are supposed to be made of, the armor specifically, not the actual people, is called ceramasteel or ceramatite or something like that. And so it's like, it's metallic, but it's also ceramic in some fashion. And so for whatever reason, and I know Lord knows you can gloss, or you can have ceramic that's very shiny and glossy because of the stuff that you put over it, glaze. But yeah, it's just always made sense to me to have the a mirror finish on a Space Marine seems weird. You know what I mean? So I don't want to have that kind of shine. Let's see here. Yeah, Baron spray can departments have been giving me anxiety for a couple of months. If you see it, buy it for now. Yeah, I bought some that filler primer last time I was at the place. I was just like, oh, geez. Then I saw like 1 can of it. And I'm like, well, I don't need it right now, but I'm going to buy it. Well, it wasn't that I don't need it. It's that I don't, like, I have a can. I don't, I'm going to need it soon because of the stuff that I'm building, the 3D printed sci-fi terrain that I'm working on. That's the stuff I need the filler primer from. One of the most useful tools I ever bought was a 2-pack of Tamiya again, paint stirrers. One end is a flat blade, the other a tiny spoon for mixing ratios, but the blade end is great for breaking up. Well, that's pretty cool. Mountaineer, how you doing? Let's see here. Side note on Krylon Flat, if you use metallic paints and what with your armor to remain shiny, don't use it. It will completely dull it down. There's a lot of folks that don't, like Vince for one, does not like to put matte varnish over metallics. I've never had that big of a trouble with it. If worst comes to worst and it really kind of bums out the metallic, what I will do is then after I'm done with that, I will go back in and do some highlights here and there, but I've never had that big of an issue with putting matte varnish over metallic and having it, like, make it not work or whatever. Let me see here. Hey, Michael Strange, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. Animaster says, I got my booster shot exactly on my 6th month from my second Pfizer. Just living in Florida qualifies for working under increased exposure to COVID. Yeah, that's a good point. Let's see here. I need a few spray cans for planned terrain projects. Feeling the call of terrain building, but accumulating junk for the purpose. Yeah, I'm going to probably be hopefully doing a bunch of terrain building over the winter, but I'm not going to be able to do any terrain painting much because, well, I have some stuff ready to go, but other stuff, the stuff that I build this winter, I probably won't be able to paint until at least spring, probably, just because with terrain, I generally like to use rattle can for primer. So yeah, I know, that just becomes an issue sometimes with snow and winter and cold and that kind of stuff. So yeah, but I can probably, as soon as it starts to get nice in the spring, then I'll have a bunch of stuff ready to go and I can, prime a whole bunch of it, which will be good. Friendly local game shops have had trouble getting in GW sprays, so I've been giving people alternatives. My local shop seems to be okay on the sprays right now, which is interesting. Like they've had Retributor Gold and they had Wraithbone. I don't know if they had Grey Seer though. They had Chaos Black, and all that kind of stuff. I was just looking at the rack. Yesterday when I was in there hanging out with Sam. Agreed, the matte varnish over metallic is a bit overrated. Never had that big of an issue with it myself, but I don't do a lot of super shiny metallics. Yeah, and again, I'm a tabletop painter. I'm not, if I'm trying to, be a pro painter and, win a contest and stuff like that, then you have to do all these extra steps to get down that road. And very frequently, to be perfectly honest with you, and which I didn't realize, many, not all, but many pro painters just kind of don't varnish their stuff. Because they don't have to worry about, touching it a lot to move it around the table because they're not playing with it. It's sitting there and being displayed, and you're being very careful with it all the time. So, yeah, you may add a varnish layer at some point because you need to protect the previous colors from the next weird thing you're going to do with maybe some sort of oil wash or whatever. But in general, when you get done with a model, you then don't go, okay, cool, now I'm going to varnish it all for display, from what I've been told by a lot of painters. But when you're doing it for tabletop painting with a lot, you're going to be touching that model a lot. It's a super smart idea. Or you're going to be putting it into foam a lot, stuff like that. I had a few treatment I had to paint and used the black primer and brown dry brush technique you posted a terrain video about, and it worked perfectly. After a few highlights, they were done. Yeah, no, tree men, like Sylvaneth stuff, those are super easy to paint, in my opinion, because it's some base coats and some dry brush and a little bit of detail, and boom, you're done. Let's see here. Every local shop here was out of GW sprays for a couple of months, but they all got huge shipments a couple of weeks ago, and now there's a spray can glut. See, maybe that's what it was. Yeah, maybe he's recently received a restock. How do you paint MDF terrain? Actually, I did a video about it here on YouTube, about how to paint MDF terrain. The short answer is it is super important to do one of two things, and I think one of them is way better than the other. You need to seal the MDF before you start painting, because otherwise it will just suck up all the paint. So you need to seal it in some fashion. The best way that I was told to seal it by a guy who manufactures MDF, his name is Austin, and he runs Death Ray Designs. His suggestion was to use, I think it's made by Rust-Oleum, but it's just called filler primer. And you spray a nice layer of filler primer over your MDF, and it will kind of seal the MDF material so it won't soak in the paint nearly as easily. So you first start with filler primer. Filler primer is also good to use on 3D printed stuff to some degree. You don't want to hold it in any real good spot for too long because it'll fill in some detail sometimes if you go crazy with it. But if you give it good coats of that filler primer, it will seal it pretty well. I've heard also other people say use PVA glue watered down with a bit of water, and then you brush it on and let that kind of soak in, and then the glue, because the water you don't want to go like 50-50. You want to go more glue than water, frankly, from what I understand, and then it will, the water will soak in a little bit into the MDF, but the glue will then coat it, and then when you go back over with a primer or whatever, it won't just instantly soak into the material. That's the hardest part about MDF, is that it soaks in normal paint. So you need to seal it first in some sort of fashion, and then you can paint over it like normal, generally. Any plans to teach games to friends or family over the holidays? I mean, my wife and I might try to get some Warcry in. We've been talking about doing that on and off, so we'll look into that. Adam, you and Goobertown are the reason for getting back into minis after 40 years. The vid on magnifiers for aging eyes was honestly life-changing. I can see details again. Thank you. Well, good to hear, Scott. Yeah, those you know, I can't use those magnifiers when I'm on Twitch, because then I can't read the screen for the chat and all that kind of stuff. And I don't use them as much as I probably should, but I do use them still quite a bit when I'm painting not on Twitch. Yeah, those magnifiers are real great. And as of this point, if you see an ad for a company that makes those magnifiers and I'm in it, they shouldn't be using me in that. There's been 2 different companies so far that have used either my photos of me, or video from that particular video where I talked about those magnifiers, to basically like, oh, hey, this guy says that these magnifiers are great, you should buy some. And they did not talk to me about it at all, and that's not cool. So anyway, I have not done a brand deal with any of those companies. So if you see an ad pop up, shoot me a message and let me know, because then I can make them hopefully stop. So yeah, that's happened a couple of times. But that being said, those kind of white magnifiers, if you watch that video, those, and whatever brand you want, they're all the same, frankly. But yeah, they work nice. Let's see here. Mod Podge would probably seal your MSG, your MDF. Yeah, probably. You may still want to water it just a touch, because it's kind of thick. And I could see getting like brush strokes maybe in it, but maybe not. But yeah, no, I can see that working pretty well too. I've got some Mod Podge, and I'm going to be using on some terrain projects at some point. So I got the matte stuff, matte finish stuff. But yeah, use spray shellac to seal MDF. Alcohol based, no water to be absorbed, and a very effective thin waterproof layer. No gap filling though. Huh. Tabrizius, that's interesting. Spray shellac. I don't know that I've seen that around, but that's interesting. Makes sense. I can see that. Yeah, because the alcohol and opposed to water. Sure, I can see that. My 16-year-old daughter has expressed an interest in learning how to play Battletech, but she recently got her first job. Maybe she'll buy her own paints and minis. Well, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah. Having your likeness stolen for ads is probably something you didn't expect from starting a YouTube channel, eh? No, not really. Not. Like, initially there were some people advertising, I think on Facebook. They were using like stills from one of my videos or something like that. Well, what happened first was that people would send me a message and say, hey, I see you're working with this company to do this stuff. And I'd be like, what? And then they would send me a screenshot of the image, and it was a picture of a guy who wasn't me. Looked kind of like me, had a beard, you know, and was gray, but and heavier, and a white guy. But it wasn't like, it was like a side shot, and he was painting. Also, he was wearing the magnifiers over his glasses, which I can't do. So I'm just like, yeah, that's not me. They're like, that's not you? I'm like, I assure you that's not me. But then when other people would be like, hey, I saw your thing, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's not me. And they're like, are you sure? And then they would send me a screenshot, and then I'm like, oh, no, that is me. That's yeah, that. And then later on, it was video stuff. Like, there was a company that had literally taken my video about how to paint when you're getting older and cut out parts of it, and then, like, yeah, and, like, edit it together with their stuff so it looked like I was, like, advocating and selling their product. It's just that their product looks like everybody else's product because they're all made in the same factory somewhere, but it was a different company altogether and all that kind of stuff. And so that video, I actually had to get content struck on YouTube because I contacted them like, hey, you don't have permission to use that, and they just never responded. So then I had to do the content strike. So it's a thing, you know, it happens. People think because it's on the internet they can just use it, and it turns out it's not true. Let's see here. My Skirmish wargame is 2 pages core rules with a bunch of characters. It's playable now. Well, that's cool. Someone commented on how cool the effect on a gem was that I painted, and I told him it was GW technical paint, and he said that's kind of cheating. It reminded me, if you're not cheating. Yeah, no, it's not cheating. You know, if you, as long as the end result is what you want, it's not cheating. So yeah, I don't have a problem with technical paints. I don't have a problem with any of that kind of stuff. Let's see here. There are no takedowns for copyright in China. Yeah, no, I've heard that about too. I thought that they were selling Uncle Adam's super miniature magnifiers, not a real uncle, not a real magnifier. Like I said, those magnifiers work real well. The ones that I have go on like glasses, though. They're like white, and they have actual like stems, and then they have a thing that sits on your nose, and then they kind of stick out a little ways, and then you snap different magnifiers in there depending on what kind you want, and you can actually angle them a little bit, so depending on how you're holding your head and all that kind of stuff. So they're actually really nice. I think you can also put a AA battery in them, and then there's a light you can put in there too, but I don't use the light because I have plenty of light. But yeah, those work just great. They also make the same type, but I think they have a strap that goes behind your head, which I assume is what the guy who was also wearing glasses at the same time must have been doing. But I don't have that kind. I have the kind that they go on like glasses, and it's real hard to wear two pairs of glasses at once, as it turns out. So, yeah, but they're pretty cool. Hobby cheating is a good thing. Just ask Vince. Screw the gatekeepers. Indeed. The cheating meme is so annoying and it doesn't even make sense. I agree. The only hobby cheating is having somebody else build and or paint your minis and then taking credit for it. Anything else is kosher. Sure, if you're like, hey, I'm going to enter this paint competition, but you paid a commission painter to paint it, and you're like, nope, I did that. That is technically cheating for sure. Well, folks, it's 11 o'clock here in my neck of the woods. I'm going to have to go around and push a shovel around a little bit outside on the sidewalk before going to the in-laws for lunch. And so long story short, getting to do some more playing, partially because Sam finally moved back to the area, which is nice, moved back to the city here. And so that's good. You'll be seeing him on Twitch again real soon. We were talking a little bit about that yesterday. But you'll also be seeing, hopefully, us playing some more games lately, and just collaborating more anyway, because I've missed him. And so, yeah, definitely. So I hope you folks have a good rest of your weekend, unless it's maybe already Monday where you are. Then have a good week. And for those of you, after this weekend is over, then you should have a good week as well. If you're interested, again, you can come check out me painting on the Crackalack-a-Ding-Dong tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central Time, Monday night, here on, well, not here, but on Twitch. Here on the internet, though. And, yeah, we'll be back again in 2 weeks with another one of these shows, and we'll hang out and have a good time. And, yeah, have a good time until then, and stay safe, and we'll see you later. Thanks for watching.